actually host on whatever board meeting that you mentioned. That was interesting.
Yeah, I would love to.
I have a few colleagues. One big Last Supper was. Do we have more chairs than we need up here, guys? I don't know if
Those poor kids.
this is the sort of still real strange. Can you all hear me, or am I going to need a microphone? hear me? Back row, everyone can hear me? Yeah. I'm not sure how this works. We just did a little adjustment so we aren't doing the Last Supper version of our board meeting, which I think will be helpful. Welcome everyone to our annual meeting. And our meeting today, we have certain things we have to do, which is elect officers at our annual meeting and also approve the audit. And we will start our meeting with those things, but we have a lot of really exciting news that we'll be hearing from Risa and members of her team, as well as updates from the city. And so there's a lot of really great things to discuss and hear more about as the morning progresses. But first, the sort of board business. This is the board meeting. Welcome all board members. We're 12 of 13 are all here today. One of our members, Dennis Gross, is traveling overseas and wasn't able to make it, but I'm glad to see everyone else. Thank you all for being here today. We need to approve our minutes from our last meeting, and I would need a motion for that. A second. All in favor of approving our minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, our minutes are approved. And we have discussed in executive committee our roster of board officers, and I am putting my name forward as chair. Denise is going to put her name forward as vice chair, Jay secretary, and David as treasurer. And I would like a motion to approve this cast of officers. Motion. This slate. Okay, second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The officers are elected and appointed, and I'll continue sharing this meeting. We also are engaging a number of committees that will be doing important work through the year on the board, for the board, and reporting into the board. They'll be reporting into the board at meetings like this, at these meetings. And the first one, we will have a governance nominating committee that will have membership of myself, Jay, Linda, Corinne, and Neil, and chaired by Denise. Our audit committee will consist of Elaine, Jonathan, and David, who will be the chair. Our development committee, it will be myself, Karen, David, and at the moment we have designated Linda and Dennis as the co-chairs, and we'll confirm that. The executive committee, it's myself chairing, along with Corinne, Jonathan, Elaine, Karen, and Denise. And our marketing committee, chaired by Denise, consists also of Jay, Corinne, Sarah, and Karen. And our strategy committee, which has been working on a strategic plan, which has been, for the moment, sort of a morphing of the marketing committees, but it is Patrick, myself, Denise the chair, Corinne, Elaine, and Karen. And we also have, we have, some interesting announcements around our Queens project today, and we have a Queens project committee in formation, which will be chaired by Jonathan and David, and I will be on it as well as Jessica. And I think now we are ready to hear a report on our audit, our financials, from Gina Manente from Rosenberg and Manente.
Yeah, I don't know what slide.
Please copy that.
talk to you.
So my name is Gina Menente, I'm the audit partner at Rosenberg Menente, and I resided over the fiscal year in audit of animal care centers in New York City. The independent audit report is an unqualified report, and it states that is our opinion the financial statement presents fairly in all material respects the financial position of animal care centers in New York City for the year ending June 30th, 2018, along with the changes in net assets and cash flows for the year that ended in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles in the United States of America. We will look at the changes in assets and liabilities. You'll note that since Tom's going to read some numbers, the assets increased by approximately $1,190,000 from 2018 from 2017. That increase in total assets primarily due to property and equipment of approximately $856,000 and approximately $300,000 in cash. The increase in property and equipment is predominantly due to purchase of 3 kiosks, adoption kiosks, and the construction and process of $771,000. The increase in cash is primarily due to an increase in liabilities and overall support. Liabilities had increased approximately $694,000 over the prior year, and that increase in total liabilities primarily due to a short-term loan from the fund of the City of New York, which was paid back in September of 2018. If we look at the changes in unrestricted net assets, there was an overall increase from 2018 to 2017 of approximately $293,000. Unrestricted revenues and support increased $1,280,000 over the prior year, and that increase is primarily due to the release of temporary restricted net assets over the prior year of approximately $702,000, as well as an increase in unrestricted contributions of approximately $160,000. Unrestricted expenses increased approximately $1,083,000 over the prior year. And that increase was primarily due to salaries and benefits, first alert stipends, and increase in occupancy, which was partially set off by a decrease in supplies and services. Looking at changes in temporary restricted net assets, these contributions in 2018 that came in this year is approximately $3,394,000. The satisfaction of both time and purpose restrictions that occurred in 2018 was $3,490,000. So the overall increase this year was $203,000. We started off the year with temporary restricted balance carried from the prior year, 2017, of approximately $848,000. Adding that together gives us our ending balance at year end June 30th of $1,051,827. Changes in restricted net assets. Overall, grants and other restricted income increased over the prior year, as we stated before, $1,183,000. In 2018, it was approximately $3,693,000 versus 2017 of $2,510,000. The increase is primarily due to increase in funding from both current and new contributors. If we look at overall support, both revenues and other support as well as expenses, overall support increased in 2018 by 8.8% over 2017, and overall expenses increased by 5.4%. So when we look at the major categories of expenses, we've got the program expenses, we have management in general, and we have fundraising. There was a slight decrease in program expenses, and that increase is reflected in management in general. That overall decrease of less than 2% was primarily due to an increase in marketing expenses, which affects management in general, of approximately $250,000, and the establishment of an allowance for doubtful accounts, the concern of an AR going potentially bad, of approximately $70,000, which you'll see that difference sitting in management in general. It is important to note, although program expenses as a percentage of the total expenses incurred by ACC did drop, overall expenses increased over prior year by approximately $473,000. And that's just a brief summary of the financial statements.
Our audit committee has met and we've reviewed these on our own. Thank you for the presentation. May I have a motion to approve the audit? And a second? All in favor of approving our audit? Thank you. Risa, you're up.
welcome to the January meeting, and thank you to members of the public for attending. Let's start off with the big news of the 34-year contract. Okay. So it is.
Yeah.
Oh, here. Oh, okay. So, recently it was announced that ACC has been awarded by the Department of Health in the City of New York 34-year contract, which will take us out to 2052. It's really thrilling news. It really will allow ACC to perform at a much higher level than we are now, even though we've been dramatically improving in the last 5 years. Our expectation is to continue to drive that performance, and with this contract, we'll have the security of the funding that we need for the contract-related services, and on top of that, 2 brand-new full-service shelters. When you look at the funding for it, you'll see the dark blue, which takes you all the way up to 2015, is basically the services that we're providing for the existing contract. And it's a gradual increase. The budget for the 34-year contract is absolutely enormous, but it's not all in one shot, and every year has a specific contract amount. It's not, we don't get it when we want it. Each year we get a certain amount in our budget. So the blue represents what we're currently doing, the services that we're doing, the services we negotiated with the city currently in Manhattan, Staten Island, and Brooklyn in our full-service care centers, and with the addition of the resource centers in Queens and Bronx. The gray shaded area that starts to really make the contract amount enormous reflects the Bronx addition, not only of the shelter, but of all the services and all the people who are going to work there, and all the additional services that we negotiated with the city to provide, for example, public-facing clinics, more field and vehicles, adoptions, outreach. So it's layered on top of what we currently do, and it also includes funding for Queens. And what's really significant about this contract is that it allows funding for ACC to purchase the property needed to build a full-service care center in Queens. And that's, in order to get financing, we need to demonstrate that we're going to be around for a long time. So a 5-year contract would probably not be too enticing for a lender, but 34 years means that we're here, the funding exists, and that's what's embedded in the gray portion of the graph that you see here. We're really thrilled. We think that Queens, by taking full ownership of finding a site, developing it, building it using state-of-the-art resources that are available, including architects and other shelters and the other animal welfare experts that we engage with, it'll be a gem, and we're really excited. We think that Queens will probably be the first brand new full-service shelter to come to fruition. Yeah. So I really can't talk a lot about the details because we haven't even closed on the site. There's a lot of issues that are just up in the air, and to discuss it in any further detail would be a little bit too soon, but certainly by June our expectation is that we will be really ready to present renderings and a time frame and just the scale of the whole project. But suffice it to say that we're going to use Queens to really be a gem. It's going to be a gem for the neighborhood. It'll be a gem for New York City. We're going to get to do all kinds of things that we haven't been doing to our best effort in the older facilities. I know that Christine from the city is going to talk about the other city-funded projects and city-controlled projects, but Queens will really be fully owned by ACC. And so I just, again, want to just really point out that the funding, it's so important to see a gradual increase in the funding, and keep your eye on the gray shaded portion. That's all about Queens and Bronx and adding people and operations and actually building expenses for Queens. However, if you see on the next slide, we have to continue to do fundraising. I mean, it's impossible to think that we could do everything we're doing just on city funding alone. We're set up as a not-for-profit, and we really pushed that to the extreme. We have set a very ambitious $4 million fundraising goal for fiscal 2019. We're about at a little bit below the halfway mark of about 1.9. This includes the gala that we just had, which was record-breaking. We raised over $400,000 at the gala. It's direct mail, it's sponsorships, it's foundations, grants, city council funding. So we have a full complement of fundraising goals. We also, just a few months ago, added a director of development to our team, Ann Tableson, who is here, I believe. There's Ann. And Ann will be really focused on raising money in the buckets that we just really haven't been paying attention to. It's going to complement and add to our fundraising program. And as Ann gets settled a little more, we'll start to see the fundraising goals increase as she starts working on her strategic initiatives. But really, fundraising is so important. It's allowed us to do amazing, innovative, best practice things that all of the leaders in animal welfare are doing. For example, Dogs Playing for Life. That's a huge component now, basically, of every highly performing animal shelter across America. But we were one of the first, if not the first, to fully implement it. So we're really proud of that funding from the Petco Foundation, which we have currently another $250,000 to keep that program going. And we also have funding from other charitable foundations like PetSmart Charities. We're doing more in the community with community outreach and clinics to serve underserved communities. So our goal is not to just take the contract, but to really use the contract funding to its fullest, and also continue to add another fundraising bucket. Yes.
The 34-year contract, you mentioned Bronx and Queens, and we know Staten Island is well underway. But Manhattan and Brooklyn, how will they be impacted by the 34-year?
So separate from this contract, and Christina will address state-of-the-art improvements that are going to happen to both centers. This just addresses the natural growth of the organization and the programs that we want to add. So it's not the blue shading for the existing contract is not just inflation. It's also about adding people and adding programs at all of the shelters. Taking a look at our intake, you can see from 2016 to 2017 there was a significant drop. One of the reasons we thought was the feline influenza that we had at the beginning of 2017, the end of 2016, we were not taking cats in. We did take them in, so there are some numbers reflected in there, but they never went inside the shelter. They went right to quarantine. But what's very interesting is to see how flat it is this year with all the programs that we put in place. We know the data reflects that we definitely took in more cats this year. But in total intake from owner surrender and from stray, it is flat. And so we really have to analyze those programs and those strategies and see what we could do better to move that number even further down. There is definitely in animal welfare a trend of intakes declining, and I think that we're seeing part of that natural trend in New York City, but clearly the stray animal problem is still a really big issue that we have to tackle. And
Sorry, just to interrupt, do we feel that we're identifying true stray cases better than before? So shouldn't that, because I know with our counseling, I think we
right. Yeah, we're
so
actually.
was that the 2017 drop, would you say, stray versus this trend that we saw in 2015, 2016?
Yes, I
That
think,
implementation?
yes, I think that what you've seen from 2016 to 2017 is where we were implementing admissions and surrender prevention programs in a very, very robust way. And it continued into 2018 with additional funding for those programs. And you're right, we would get animals just at the front counter with really, are they stray, are they yours? Some people didn't want to say they were stray. So yes, we are doing a better job of figuring out or working with a client and we get the information we need. And frankly, having owner surrender is better than a stray because we
Right.
have so much more information. And that animal probably can be set up for adoption much quicker.
Right.
I would say also, well, I'll get to another slide with respect to owner surrender, that admissions and surrender prevention program is super, super important because we are serving the needs of a lot of people. And in the last 3 or 4 years that we've had the program, it's been over 5,000 animals that we have not seen come into the shelter, that we have worked with those families. And so, and we track
Keeping
that.
people with their pets.
Exactly,
Which is great.
exactly. So, but we do see and we know that we have to do something bold to try and address, we don't want to just flatline at this intake.
Right.
I think that we can do a lot more in the community to help get these numbers.
So what is that number, just in terms of the number, stray number for 2018?
Versus 2017.
Or just even what the number is?
Like 12.
23,000 total, but what is the
Breakdown.
I don't have the data with
roughly?
me, but I can,
Okay.
This has to be
it's more than half, right?
And it's mostly
Yeah.
cats, or is it?
I don't want to, I really don't want to guess.
Okay,
That's
as a
the
follow-up, can you tell us what
anecdotal
the mix
usually
is?
that, but
The
I
numbers
really-
and the mix?
Yeah,
I
I mean,
would
if you
like to
think
know.
about cats, we get litters of kittens in their stray. So I would venture that it is more cats than dogs. Clearly, every year the intake of dogs and cats has always been higher. So,
Yeah, if we could just get that breakdown.
And also, I have a question, the rabbits are listed on here, and I know that was, somebody had that question at the presentation we were at last week. And is it also gonna be on the website, information
Yeah,
is
so-
on there?
yes, we report dogs and cats because that's how Asilmar reporting is. But we're gonna move to a place where we're reporting everything. We did in the upper right, thank you for pointing that out. We took in 338 rabbits. And those take resources. They take people's time and we have to set them up for success, just like dogs and cats. And so if perhaps an animal welfare, the whole nation would move in that direction too. The other thing is that we're going to report are the others, because we are providing resources for wildlife and for raccoons and for all this other stuff, variety of animal that's coming in that's not part of the national data. It's really important for New York City to see that in our contract, we're not just spending money on dogs and cats. So thank you for bringing that up.
And the rabbit trend over 5 years, there was a spike, right? How are we, what's 338 representing?
I think we're seeing a decline
A
in
decline,
intake in rabbits, yeah.
Lisa, some percentage of the stray intake is chipped, and so we would know if we've had them in the system before, right?
Well, everybody gets scanned for a microchip.
Right.
Right,
So
so if they come in stray and they scan positive, we're going to do whatever effort we can to find the
But
owner.
we would know if we've had them before.
Oh, yeah.
I'd
We
be
might have
interested to know that too,
What percentage of?
Yeah.
What percentage per stray that
because
works?
that might reflect failed adoption.
Okay, I don't know whether,
Yeah, we definitely, we can do that.
a failed adoption that just,
Well, I don't know, if we adopted out an animal that was in
they're
the
gonna be
system.
limicensed for microchip.
Right, and then they come in as a stray, potentially.
So we would say they're lost, and then we would reunite them with their owner, who's lost in the
We have some return to owners, we also have some return to owners that came originally from us. So it's nice to see both buckets as well, yeah. Return to owner that originally came from us, and abandoned to us that were not returned to owners.
Lisa, how would the placement rate change from 2014 to 2018?
from 2014 to 2018, so moving backwards, this year's 92.5, that was 93.2, 2016, I think we were at 89.
Yeah, that's what.
And then 2015 was about 86, and 2014, 80?
I'm not sure that we
82?
moved to Silmar in 2014.
That's, yeah, so the
But
way,
approximately.
yeah, but
It doesn't
approximately,
have to be exact.
Yeah,
What
but
I'm hearing is it's gone from 80 to 92.5, we're slightly down to last year.
yeah, in 2014, we were around 80, 82.
Question
I
about
can
the
go back and look
strays.
at that.
Do we know, are they proportionately distributed throughout the boroughs? Is there a spike in one borough versus the other? That would be another interesting thing, I think, to
Yeah, we can, I know, we can definitely look at all of that.
That might help figure out where the biggest issue is if it's not.
Isn't it correlated to low income?
I don't know if we even have the muscle to figure that one out, but we can definitely look at a zip code map and see percentage of strays and where they're coming from. And that's really part of our community outreach program.
Right.
There are so many underserved communities in New York City. We're trying to get to as many as we possibly can, but we have to find them because that's the challenge. And we went to this presentation, which I'll get to later, but on animal welfare, that there are so many communities out there that don't even know we exist. And there was some data that was presented that about 70% of people with pets never went to a vet, and 80% never interacted with a care center or a control officer. So we really need to do more in the community, and we want to serve them not because we can help you find, it's not a lost and found or on the stray end, but how do we keep your animal with you and encourage a healthy and safe relationship.
There's turned out to be a spike in a couple of pockets that might be a good place to, low hanging fruit to
Right.
target.
Right, and that's, we look at data from various zip codes to determine where we should put our community outreach programs. That's how we started the Bronx first community outreach mobile event. And as they build, and sometimes they get successful and just more people start showing up, so we don't really want to move. And that's really why we need to build out these community outreach programs, because they are seeing a lot of success.
What about data on the age of the strays? So are you seeing 5-year-old cats surrendered because the owner realizes they might not be able to afford the vet care or something?
We can look at that more specifically, but just, there's so much data you can look at. We were looking at ages yesterday. And, with small dogs, you see a lot of small dogs that are older being surrendered because the cost of care is going up. And what we're trying to do is figure out, well, what can we do to help you continue on with your older pet that may need to go to the vet or needs dental work or things like that. We can really study it in lots of different ways.
What's the primary reason, do you think, the big decline from 2014 to 2016 versus 2017 and 2018? The decline from 2016 to 17.
In the intake?
30,000 versus 23,000.
Or is it several things added together?
Yeah, I mean, I think
What in your mind are the big factors that drive it?
funding drives the amount of staffing and programs that we can introduce to do better. So in 2014, 2015, and really toward the tail end of 2016, we were just starting to reach into the community. And we were also not doing surrender prevention. Surrender prevention is a very, very big component, and it has to be bigger to get out, to address more people who have issues who want it. They're solvable. Their animal may have an illness, and they think, I can't keep them. So that's really, I think the big trigger was surrender prevention efforts, but we also had more funding for more staff. And so there are more people able to do what they do best, so we created departments that could help our clients in the best way possible.
I ask because as we continue to increase our funding, which I know is a big goal, do we expect to continue to see the intake go down commensurately?
I think we will.
So, certainly like in the stray category, spay neuter is a terrific operation throughout the whole city and nationally. We could definitely do more spay neuter. There should definitely be more concentration on what is going on with cats in New York City. We have to figure out some areas that will require new departments, additional people to focus on what is driving so many strays. Because really to just sort of sit back and say, we're here for everybody and we take the strays, and that's not going to help. So the funding is really going to help us create these programs and bring in the expertise that we need. we're gonna explore lots of initiatives, legislative initiatives, maybe we need to do more with the city, with housing issues. That's a really big nut that has not been, cracked. And we've been talking to other cities, what they've done, and it's a hard issue. I'm just starting to have conversations with other people who face the same challenges with their cities.
But also, as we see nationwide, the trends are that, yes, the numbers are going down, but the costs are going up, correct?
Shelters are spending a lot more per animal
right,
because the
because-
medical needs and
exactly.
the behavioral needs are really expensive. And
Yeah.
so if we want to,
And in a way, a lot of those animals that might not incur such high costs are either never getting into our system, or maybe they're even part of, these movements and transports of very highly adoptable pets that are, there's 500,000 animals moving all over the country every year, right?
correct, they're much more they're easier to place,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
those resources
So we're
are
getting
not as intense.
Animals that need more medical care, more behavioral
Harder to
care,
adopt.
harder to adopt,
Do you know how many,
more costs.
how many of our animals are transported into this area?
How many of ours?
The ones
What do you
that
mean that
come
are in
into our-
ACC?
I think that's hard to
Wait,
know.
how many animals
Are coming into
came
New York
ACC
City,
for
no.
transport?
coming into New York City,
City,
not
New
into
York City,
ACC,
1,000.
but we don't know the number.
Yeah, we don't know the exact number, but if you look at, there's lots of animals coming from Puerto Rico and from the hurricane disaster
From the
zones,
south.
animals are coming in the south. And,
Yeah.
we, because of our population, we're not part of that. I mean, if we got to a place where, like in that talk, we have no animals for adoption, then perhaps we would be on that bandwagon, but we're not going outside of New York City to find animals because we still have, so many
No, I
to deal
understand
with.
that, but of these strays that are coming in, are they animals that are been born in New York City, or are they from, Puerto Rico, or?
The only way we could know with the stray is if we had some history, so that's a better, we would know that from an owner's surrender. Where did you get your animal from? If it's microchipped.
Most of those animals that are brought up are microchipped by the organizations, and they're usually spayed and microchipped, so they could be tracked fairly easily.
Yeah. Does admission see any of that?
No.
The medical costs, is there a robust internship program in the ACC to try to get interns to maybe do rotations in
Yes,
the
in fact,
organization?
I think a couple interns from Cornell are starting.
We're working with Cornell. I think it's Long Island University is starting a vet program, which is great. I just met the two people who are heading that up. And we're gonna partner with them because they'll need internships to graduate. So yes, Dr. Brand has really been looking for internships, and our medical staff has grown to the point where we have the time and the expertise to have an intern come in, because it requires, even for the internship credit, it requires a lot of oversight. But we are definitely going down that path.
Are they teaching shelter medicine at these facilities?
Well, the Long Island University and Cornell, they have a shelter medicine program. A lot of vet schools do not. But it's becoming more, and EJ, you can speak to that.
There's more and more doing it, they have a track, there's actually groups, and so it's much more. Maddie's fund started doing that quite a bit. And so I'd say predominance of veterinary schools have a shelter program.
Okay, looking at trends in placement, really, we're still on the drive to increase our direct adoptions and at the same time keep up a robust partnership with all of our NYCHealth partners who really do tremendous work. They took 55% of our dogs and cats this year. But what's changing here is that we're doing more adoptions, and the growth of 3% is, that's about a little over 7,800 animals that were directly adopted to the public. We're doing more mobile events. We really anticipate that number to increase when we have a full-service shelter in the Bronx and in Queens. But we also feel that as our reputation grows, having these warm and friendly, family safe places, because Manhattan is gonna have a brand new adoption center, Staten Island will be brand new, Brooklyn is gonna get a complete makeover. We'll see, we will see more people coming in, I think, for adoptions, and that's also part of marketing strategy and just, really making sure that we're getting to communities. Even with all these state-of-the-art facilities, we have to keep going out with our vehicles, because it's good outreach, it's good marketing, and, we get animals adopted that way.
Anything being done also to specifically look at and focus on within the new hope, 55%, there's, I understand some high concentrations too within that. Where the new hope really equal, or without working harder with ones that have a higher concentration?
I mean, the groups of full more we just naturally work with more. We are, the dog, placements are much more kind of spread out among more groups.
Correct.
The cats tend to be, there's a couple
Much
much
higher
like.
concentration.
So we are looking at ways to develop new partnerships with more capital.
And we actually added about 30, a little over, it's in another slide, we added about 30 new partners this year.
And then the percentage that's returned to owner, which is a small percentage, I think it's like 9% this year, it's that year. Is there follow-up with them? And I know it goes back to, I think, the question from before too, do we make sure that they don't come back again as a stray? And is there follow-up with those people to make sure that they can commit to taking care of that animal?
Yeah, I mean, some of them actually leave with resources that we are trying to prevent that animal from coming back. So certainly they're going to be, because in that in return to owner, we be stray. So microchip, license, spayed and neutered. We had a situation where a dog came in repeatedly because he got out from his owner's fence, and we went out there and built the fence to make sure that it, right? So we're trying really to make that animal-human bond successful, because that's a win-win. Okay, so I want to talk about our role in the community. Last week, we had the opportunity, the board, the public, a lot of our stakeholders, our staff had the opportunity to hear Roger Haston speak on the future of animal welfare. He's a national speaker. He is the senior executive at PetSmart Charities, and holds a PhD in data analytics, and he studies a lot of data. And he just sort of laid out the landscape of the past, the present, and the future of animal welfare. And what is, no surprise to us, the community is really, that is the focus. And I say no surprise because ACC is a big player, and we're part of all of these national conversations. We go to conferences, we're invited to speak. We have small groups, think tanks that are talking about these issues. So but it was important that for people outside of our organization to hear and see that this is a movement, that it's not, like our success is not going to just be based on what's happening inside the shelter. Certainly that's so important, and building new state-of-the-art, full-service operations is also extremely important, because we still have to pay attention to 23,000 plus that are in our care, but the community is such a big piece. And so I just, I want to hit some highlights of what we're doing. I'm not going to go through everything because I don't want to just repeat things that we're doing, but just some highlights of just where we are in the community. But I will say, when you look at this, one thing to keep in mind, and this is like a big talking point that seems to pop up on a lot of people's radars, is that the trend in animal welfare is that intakes are declining, and that there are so many shelters that just don't have any more animals. And we put up a slide where it said no more dogs, and I think like that would be terrific if I could have a slide here that says we have nothing left. That is a national trend, but there's a problem embedded in that with now there's transport from other cities bringing animals in. So New York City's not there yet, so we still have to struggle with competition all over. So really what we're focusing on is there are people in the community who have pets who need our help. Otherwise, they will become a statistic. We still want to do adoptions, and that's really important, but we don't define like that the center is for adoptions. It's really adoptions and placement is a piece of how we measure success. If we can keep 10,000 animals through surrender prevention out of the shelter, that's success. The placement rate may change, because if we are keeping them out of the shelter and all that's coming in now are more and more very hard to place animals, either because of behavior issues, more behavior than I think illness, because illness is, from your perspective, Jay, like you can try and treat or manage an illness, but behaviors are really, really time consuming, steady, you have to spend a lot of time to try and address it, and sometimes you can't. So, we really have to just, I think the programs that we're doing now, to push animals, higher placement is super important, but there's other things that are just as important, and that's where the whole focus on being a resource to the community and the future of animal welfare is going. So, in the first, on the outside of the circle, we have like all the support functions, marketing, technology, human resources, and development. And every day we're working on ways to do all of that better, but all of those four parts of the organization really help support what the programs and the operations are trying to achieve. So if we look at our admissions program, and I won't spend long on it because I think I said a lot, just this past year, we did a little over 2,500 preventions. And we want to see that be bigger and bigger every year. And again, just like last year, the main issues of why people are surrendering are animal health, human health, housing issues, and behavior issues. So it's all the basic challenges that we see inside the shelter too. The assistance that we're providing is tenant advocacy. We met a couple of years ago with someone from NYCHealth who had said that people don't kick out just because they have a dog. So if we can offer some support to just manage somebody in city housing having a pet and let that situation blow over, we're going to help them do that.
As we do more prevention, does it cost more, obviously? As we do more surrender prevention, the cost goes up.
Absolutely. Especially, again, in medical behavior, because those costs are really rising.
And are we partnering actively with a lot of different city or nonprofits that are working on social welfare issues to, you mentioned tenant and NYCHealth, but are we working with, if there are human health issues or human issues that are driving a pet surrender, are we able to liaise with the right organizations that can help the owner?
Yeah, that's part of the strategy
Okay,
to do more of that.
That's great.
Because there are a lot of social issues
Yeah.
involved.
So does the other point, are we actually giving community members money to deal with the medical and behavior issues that we grant them?
Yes. So there's stipends available.
But medical grants for animals, not say
For the
I'm sick
animals,
and
yeah,
I can't take
right,
care of my,
right.
you aren't. Right. No, I mean, but that's something that
Could be a
That
source
could be
of
something,
funding.
or we work with
Yeah.
agencies and organizations that can help.
So how does that work? So someone
So,
comes in
for
and says, like,
example,
my pet-
right, and so the ACC has given us funding for surrender prevention, and there are different parts to that grant, and there's a certain amount set aside for medical grants. So it could be that your cat needs dental work, and so, but you can't afford it, and so we would pay for that service, and we would send you to a partner vet to do that. And some people can't even get to the vets because there's such a lack of veterinary service in so many pockets in New York City, and these are people who are coming to us, there's no service nearby. We'll put them in a camp, so it pays for that. So there's a lot of stipend money to make surrender prevention work. As we build the Bronx and Queens shelters, we want to be able to provide that in-house. And so the stipend money might be used for like the extreme cases that we just couldn't help you with. I think that we'll start.
Or we hook them up with trainers?
Yeah, we've done that too. there are a couple of trainers that we've been working with for the year, and there's actually a bunch of free services that were provided through the grant. Because these things are expensive and they're time consuming, so if we could give somebody a training grant, that's great, because you'll probably have more success with your own pet in your home and in your community than we will have in the shelter environment, you know, where it's a much different experience. So I would love to continue to push the grants as a fundraising goal, because I think a lot of things that we can't provide can be a resource to keep an animal and pet and people together.
So for outreach to the community, so the police department has transitioned to neighborhood coordination officers in every sector and every business citywide. Do you get involved with any of the training for the neighborhood coordination officers that are coming on board? And if not, is that something that you'd like, because they could then pass this message on when they come across a crisis situation? They'll probably be more apt to find that as initial responders.
I'm not aware of those particular officers, but I know that our field team really works closely with PD. So for identifying cruelty, we're going to do something with dispatch, how you guys work dispatch.
Right, so but we can actually have it where you can be part of the ongoing training for neighborhood coordination officers, and they would be able to get this message out.
That's
in
great.
every prison.
That's great. We'll follow up with you. That's a really good.
That's really good.
component. Yeah, thank you.
Do we have relationships with any vets that do some for work at their clinics? Is that something that they encourage?
You mentioned partner vets.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, like, I long ago, I worked in a shelter where the vet in the community did agreed to do X amount of work on dogs or whatever. I just wondered if there were any exploration of vets that might provide free services.
Dr. Brennan has developed a couple of relationships recently where we have one that hospital that she's working with that will take one case a week. It's varying cases, and some of them can be pretty time and financially expensive. And then she's also talking to someone on Staten Island that has a number of practices there to see how we can work with
So
them.
it's on the radar.
Yeah.
That's great.
We have partnerships. When I say partnerships with vets, they reduce their fee. We have a lot, we will pay a lot less than a member of the public, straight from the public. And then, of course, the ASPCA does offer free spay neuter, and so we set people up that way as well.
I know that vets don't like to do it, because I know we talked about it before, but I wonder if, just like on the website, we ask for fosters and volunteers, if it makes sense to ask for vets who would donate their services. Just,
Yeah.
can ask our own vets. Yeah, but just make it a program. Inspire.
Okay, so, you moved on, thank you. Community Pets is another program and initiative that I just want to highlight again about the work that we're doing outside of the community to help all of our drive the success across every aspect of the organization. In the past year, we had more than one wellness clinic a month. We actually would have had 2 more, but they were canceled for this horrendous weather. You can see that we serve nearly 2,000 pets. The main feature is free vaccinations. Those pets are getting microchipped. We are really getting information from the community about what their needs are. We set them up for spay neuter. We have a grant from, we have a grant from PetSmart Charities to reimburse a vet who does free spay neuter in the community. It's called the Toby Project, and so we provide, so the client doesn't pay anything, but we, per spay neuter, we are reimbursing the Toby Project. And that's really been successful. And actually, one of the great things that we've seen is that people are showing up with their pets. It's not just about dogs, and as we were talking about it, we do have so many more cats in the shelter than dogs. So it's good to see that that these services are reaching cat owners as well. And even there, we've had, we've given out vouchers for free dog training, basic obedience training, that has been really successful. In the volunteer and foster community, another big push in animal welfare is foster. If anybody follows the Maddie's Fund, that's virtually every week you'll have multiple emails from Maddie's, but there's always one about foster, and the idea is to just get an animal out of the shelter for any amount of time, because that's going to be an enriching experience for the animal certainly, but also for the human, because maybe you'll adopt, not now, maybe later, people, your friends, someone's going to see that pet and ask you questions about ACC, so on so many levels, foster is just an amazing program. We have currently 1,600, in 2018, we had over 1,600 animals in foster, 730 fosters. We're making the foster orientation, signing up to be a foster even simpler. Come February, it will be online. It's a really well thought out program. We want to grow it. We want to have animals out even for a long weekend. It can be as simple as that. And our volunteers are amazing. In the last year, 36,000 hours, that's the equivalent of 15 full-time staff. And we're continuing to grow the volunteer program as well. We've had a little change in management in the volunteer program, so we're just sort of taking some reflection on where we want the program to be, what we want in terms of volunteer hours. Most of it is concentrated in shelter, but I think there's a huge opportunity to have volunteers in so many other parts of the organization. And a big shout out to our outreach team, who is, they do a lot of cabling events. I think Faith is here, and Alex is doing a lot of outreach with schools, growing the new generation of volunteers. But these events are really, really great. Sometimes there are animals there, sometimes not. They have a contribution box that in the last year, I think, brought in over $3,000. I mean, they're really getting the word out, and with, in concert with marketing, we have the right kind of material that is understandable and it's short and easy to carry and use. So that also is just showing a lot of success. So the volunteers, the outreach, and foster is just another way that we're getting into communities that are not based around the shelters.
How many animals would you say are in foster at any given time?
At any given time.
It really varies throughout the year. Over the summer, there would be several hundred because we have so many litters of kittens in. At this time of year, we have less, probably in the range of 80.
So there is an opportunity for us to get more fosters and applications in.
Yeah, we're always looking for more fosters, particularly large dog fosters. That's the hardest one in New York City for us to get.
And that's why fostering a large dog, even just for a long weekend, I think we can change some minds. So it's just sort of like a gateway to like, oh, big dog. And people in your community will also see like that's a big dog is fine. So it's part of like what we were trying to do with our pit bowl events. Like just come in and see that these are really nice dogs. It's nothing to be so afraid of. That's part of the challenge. And the bigger challenge is that's pretty much the population of dogs. Over 50% are large head, large size, medium to large size dogs. So we want to get them in the community too.
Is there anything that they wear when they're being walked or fostered that says like, bring to forehead, adopt me?
Yeah.
So that when they're walking in the street in New York, I look at the dog and say, oh, that dog needs to be adopted?
Yeah, we provide our fosters with that.
So they wear jackets or what do they
I
wear?
don't think they have jackets.
There's a
vests,
yeah.
Adopted
Bandanas,
vests.
yeah.
And the fosters, right? And so do you think they're good about wearing them?
I think
I've
so.
seen them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing wearing, they're good about promoting the town social media thing.
Yeah, so that's really probably going to be even more impactful is
Yeah.
social media. Yeah.
There's so many people on the streets of New York City, so if there's
Yeah.
a brick and
Yeah.
That's worked well. I've fostered, I think, my nine fostered. And when we walk them around the neighborhood, they have a vest on and get a lot of interest. People coming right over, I want that dog. So it's worked out. The most recent was the guy who owns the restaurant next door is going to adopt one of them.
Yeah, so that's the foster program.
And I'm a failed foster. I can't offer any good advice.
That's the foster program, I just find.
Okay, and then moving to placement, again, this is where the marketing efforts support placement and adoptions, just to try and get our branding out there through social media and advertising events, and we've changed the racks on our vehicles, so it has our new logo, which is, that takes money. So in the last couple of years, we've changed over from animal care and control to animal care centers. We really do want to push adoptions. We've had a good year. This was the highest amount of animals we've adopted since we've started doing adoptions. The New Hope partners, again, really strong, 11,000 animals. We're really grateful to have that community. It's a very important part of placing more animals. With New Hope,
I am so sorry.
I don't know why. We added 38 New Hope partners, so to your point, David, and Ellen's response, we're trying to find, spread out.
I am really sorry.
And then in the past year, we've done over 200 mobile events. I mean, those mobile adoption vehicles are really, really great. There are so many pieces of marketing and placement or coverage with those vehicles. And we have one coming for Queens.
Yes. Should be arriving in April.
Excellent. So at the next board report, we will have news to tell you. And also, I just wanted, in there's a lot of other things going on. I thought an important statistic just to share with you. Our field rescue team responded to over 15,000 calls for help. We really do answer a lot of needs in this community, and for us to be successful, we're really trying to narrow in on the ones that have the greatest impact and then grow it out further and further. So I want to turn your attention to what we're doing in placement. I'm going to introduce Ellen Curtis, who's our Senior Director of Strategic Operations.
Hello. So there are so many things that I could tell you about because we're always working on so many new things, but I'm going to focus on 3 things today that have either started happening this month or happening in the next week. And those are changes to our at-risk list, our new canine behavior assessments, and our new placement transport program. So for the at-risk,
Here, do you mind just facing, just so we
Yep.
can hear?
so, and sorry, I've had this super cold of 2019, so excuse my voice. So for the at-risk list, we're always looking at ways that we can make it a better process for the users of the list, the people who are either adopting or taking through our new Hope partners, and also for our staff. And so we started a working group this past fall to talk about how we could make those improvements and what that would look like. And so what we came up with, I think is super exciting, is that we are addressing the biggest ask we get from our partners, which is for more time. The list would currently go live at 6 p.m. and be online and available with all the information on the animals who are at risk until noon the next day. And we had heard from partners that that was not enough time for them to hear from potential adopters and fosters and then vet those people if they were people they hadn't worked with before. So beginning this coming Sunday, we will have only 3 lists per week. and each list will be up an additional 24 hours, so they will be up for a total of 42 hours. So the schedule will be that a list that goes up at 6 p.m. on Sunday will stay up until noon Tuesday, and then Tuesday into Thursday, and Thursday into Saturday. So that will give, hopefully, partners much more time to hear from people, and place a lot more animals. We typically have a process, our internal process, that we have QA staff who review the list every single night. That will continue, and they will still do a review every night, even if the list isn't new, just to make sure things happen, new notes are added. We've created internal processes for everything that can happen in those 42 hours that the animal would be listed. An animal could suddenly resolve from a URI that has them on the at-risk list. They would be removed. We could hear from an owner. So there will be real-time removals. An animal could be adopted and physically leave the building, or placed with New Hope and physically leave the building. That's what we want, so those would be removed from the list at that time. So we're hoping that this is gonna really kind of streamline getting more animals out by providing this additional time. Realizing that the first question we were asked was, will this mean double lists? And that is absolutely not our intent. One thing I will say is that because the list is not something that we can predict, or that we say we're gonna list a certain number of animals per night, it's really depending on the condition of the individual animals in our care. But our goal is not to even come close to having double lists just because we have half the list. And so some of the things we're gonna do to make sure that doesn't happen, we will no longer list small dogs ever. We always find placement for them. A small dog could be Cujo in a tiny body, and we're still gonna find placement. So we're just gonna work with internal process to make sure that we have some extra time that's needed sometimes, but they will not be on the list. So that will not be something that Equal Partners need to try to work on. We're also gonna work with more deadline and priority pleas to partners. Right now, we really do priority and deadlines, mainly if it's a medical case that really has to leave the shelter by a certain time for the treatment of the animal. But we're gonna give longer deadlines and try to see if partners will start prioritizing animals sooner. And we're also have created a system for sharing. Someone had done this at the Manhattan shelter, and it seems to have worked really well, where the list of animals is shared as early in the day as possible, and then different departments look at that list, and you could have someone from adoption, an adoption counselor, say, you know, I've seen some interest, I feel like we could really push this dog, and if we really feature, we could get this dog adopted. Or foster takes a lot of animals and places them in foster homes on the list. And also sometimes a New Hope partner will say, you know, this is, I hadn't noticed this before, but now that I really see it, this dog, I know this partner will take this dog, so we won't even list. So those are some of the things that we are gonna do. Internally also, we have what we call, it's a meeting that we have every day at 3 o'clock, where we look at any animal that hasn't been reserved, and we talk about, should we relist this animal? Are there more things we could do? Is there anything missing that we need to get? It could be a better photo or video or a bio. It could be additional information from our behavior staff. We're gonna move those meetings up till noon to start that whole process earlier. So that's the gist of it. We had a phone call last night. We invited all of our New Hope partners who utilized the at-risk list the most. The feedback was favorable, but to be honest, it's going to take help. I mean, we're going to need help with this, so we're really hoping that people will respond to this and will acknowledge that, yes, we do still have an at-risk list, but we are adding that time component that has been asked for, and that hopefully groups will be able to work better with their contacts on that.
So just as a reminder, for the board members, can you remind us what kind of animals go on the at-risk list?
Yes. Animals that go on the at-risk list are animals that have either a medical or behavioral condition that we cannot humanely keep in the shelter. And so that could be, it could be a dog who is deteriorating, and, you know, circling in the pen. It could be, animals that have, contagious illness. It could be, you know, those are the types of reasons. It could be a cat that has Maryland tumors. There's just different, there's a list of things that would lead to
But just to reiterate,
no
no healthy animals.
healthy animals, no healthy animals, no. No healthy animals, and, I mean, our goal, our long-term goal is no animals that are, treatable, rehabilitatable, yes.
Ellen, is all that information that you just laid out gonna be posted somewhere?
We can post it, yeah, I mean, we'll change the whole at-risk site. All of that will be on there starting Sunday. We did send this information out to our volunteers and fosters and NYCHealth partners, and we can definitely share it more broadly.
You said Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday are gonna be the days.
Yes, for 42 hours. So we had heard a lot that, the daytime hours were important to the partners to hear from people, so this will give them that. And, you know, to be honest, like, I completely understand, like, you know, everyone has different processes. We have open adoptions where someone can come in and adopt and go home that day with an animal. But when you're talking about a dog who is New Hope only for behavior and has behaviors that really need modification, I understand that, and I don't only understand, I don't want a partner to send that dog to someone where they have no idea what that person's level of experience is. So having that extra time is a good thing all around for the animal and the person fostering and the partner.
Right now, anybody who's involved in this experiment is aware now of these changes.
Yeah.
Is there training for fosters that are interested in fostering these type of animals? So, yeah, it's like identifying a group of fosters that say, I'll take an at-risk dog, but I need training on how to, you know, with disease or, you know, anything else that certain very training.
If it's a New Hope only dog, that they think we really need that level of modification, we won't place that dog into one of our foster homes, because our foster homes, we want to keep them more available for more volume per se. And those can be dogs that need to be in foster for 3-6 months. With our partners, we do offer resources with our behavior staff, and we are looking to develop classes and trainings for working with them, and we provided guidelines of trainers that they could work with and methods that we would recommend using.
Do we, for foster, just the same point about fosters, for those with, that have an illness that are curable, do we work with fosters to, if they're interested in
Oh, absolutely.
saving
Yeah, and
animals,
that's, that review,
and
yeah, the review that I mentioned, of that risk list, Foster takes a number of dogs and cats from the list, so before it's even published, and puts them into foster. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's kind of, you know, it's interesting because sometimes we have a dog that isn't feeling well, and shows one behavior, and then it's a very different dog, so we've had some challenges where we've then had to go to New Hope because the dog, when they have recovered from their upper respiratory, is not the mellow dog, let's say, that they were when they weren't. So that can happen too, that we'll then have to find placement with a
Why
partner.
not the reverse, when you find a dog becomes more mellow over time?
That's what we hope for, yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I think, I absolutely agree. The things I've heard most often is that we need more time, more day hours. And what's our time frame for assessing these changes and hopefully seeing, you know, reporting back on the success? I mean, I assume we're gonna just keep this policy going, but how are we gonna learn how successful this is working?
I would hope, well.
How
so-
soon and how will we? At the next board meeting?
Yeah, we can definitely
Yeah.
report at the next board meeting. It launches this Sunday. I will measure success by having no change or perhaps even an increase in placements.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the goal.
and I can definitely report back after a couple months and let
Great.
you all know how we're doing.
Excellent.
So the next thing, and the next couple things kind of go along with everything we're trying to do to get more animals placed and get them placed in a timely manner. And so our canine behavior team over the course of many months and much conversation and research, have developed a new assessment. So we previously had used a modified version of SAFER. The SAFER assessment was created by the ASPCA. They no longer use it themselves. We had taken certain components like resource guarding and food guarding and dog-to-dog out of it anyway. But what we were looking at it and looking at the way we categorized animals, which was previously beginner home, average home, experience, etc. We wanted to make something that was more friendly and really to make it more about who, like, less hard rules about who can adopt a dog based on some category, and more about customized counseling about that individual dog. And I think that's, what everyone wants to do is look at the individual dog and not just say, you're in this group of experienced no child. And so we've really tailored the new assessment to look at behaviors that we're seeing in the shelter, and also taking into account frequently asked questions that we get from adopters about behavior, and factoring in more input from staff and from volunteers who spend a lot of time with these animals. And on that note, one of the things that I had asked the behavior team to look at when they were doing this is the fact that we do frequently hear that volunteers are seeing different behavior than we've seen. And that happens. In some senses, like the way a dog is with someone that they're seeing who's taking them for a walk every day, there's a familiarity with that, but we want to know about that. So we had created an email account, and volunteers can send in and tell us, like, this is what we've seen in this dog, or these are the changes we've seen since this dog has been here, one way or the other. It could be changes for the better, it could be changes for the worse, and then our behavior team will follow up on that. And that's been really helpful and has really made changes for a couple dogs. So in that light, in looking at, like, what do adopters ask for, what do adopters care about? Like, do adopters care about stare? Like, stare was one of the, or look was one of the things in the SAFER assessment. They don't, but they do care about leash walking. So we incorporated that into the assessment now. And instead of having the beginner, average always meant average home, but everyone always thought it meant an average animal, which was never true. So taking out those, like, hard, fast rules and looking like you're a level 1, a level 2, or a level 3, or New Hope only. But a level 1 dog, instead of saying, like before, beginner dog was, okay, this dog can go with any family regardless. Now it's looking at a number of different factors. And a level 1 dog could also be one that we say shouldn't go to a home with small children, but could go to a basically new adopter if they didn't have that small child. So it's really trying to take out those hard, fast rules. I don't know how else to say it. Sorry, I have a little foggy still from cold medicine, but really to look at the individual dog and what we can do best for them. So, we felt like average experience in our child was a little off-putting and a little too confusing. So now it's much more about going through with the person all the factors that went into that determination. And this is still, like, very much a work in progress. I would call this a pilot at this point. We've had meetings since, and we figured out things already that just aren't having any reaction. We had one that was raised voice, and what the assessors basically came back and said was the dog doesn't have any, like, measurable reaction to a raised voice, except they get excited and happy, and they might, like, start wagging their tail. And I had said they couldn't say anything, like, raised voice doesn't mean you're saying something mean to the dog. So we have, like, assessors screaming, like, not screaming, but, like, raised voice, like, you're a good dog, you're such a good dog. And the dog, meanwhile, like, the reaction we're looking for is if they knew you were afraid of that. And instead the dog's wagging their tail and, like, head tail's happy. So that hasn't really shown anything that would be helpful for this, so we're going to take that out, although it is fun. And we are trying to incorporate some fun facts in with it too, so anything that, like, staff members have noticed that's especially cute, or a volunteer, and incorporate that. So we have pages on this that we are going to put on our website that will be available to really explain how this is working, and I can certainly send it to anyone here who's interested in seeing it. The other thing that we've added with outreach money that we got from DOH is we now have 2 full-time trainers on staff. And these are people with extensive experience and certifications, and they are gonna be working with, to start with adopters, they're gonna make themselves available, they're gonna work with volunteers, they're gonna do a half-day training for all staff on handling skills, because you can't learn handling skills sitting at our headquarters office with, what's our dog's name? Stuffed dog? Mahoney. That's not Mahoney, stuffed Mahoney isn't gonna help, so they're actually gonna be in the shelter doing those trainings. We're looking at having an ask the trainer kind of thing. They're looking at all the online resources that are out there, because there's a lot of them now that are really good, how we can work better with those. And just, again, trying to help the adopters with things they do see. Like you said, I mean, sometimes an animal will go home and they're showing different behavior than you've seen. It could be on the plus side, it could be a little bit on the nervous to be in the home side, so providing those resources.
Just a quick question, now that you've raised you're gonna have more user-friendly information about each dog, from what you're saying, just on this new behavior assessment. Is there going to be a method where this information now gets on the website on these dogs, when they're described? We can have that conversation before not.
So I don't want to get into too much because it's not done, but the website bios will be completely changed. They will be completely different, probably to a much, much friendlier, I think friendlier, positive, and every dog will have something every dog and cat will have something from the time they come in, because the way it will be set up is that from the admissions counselor that works with the person and does the intake, they can put something up immediately.
We won't have Snoopy does not get some, so.
Yes, well, actually, and I'm not, full disclosure, I'm stealing this. I saw one that I like the best, and I've talked to the organization, and they're being very nice about it. If you're a stray, your history is a mystery. So it starts with that, but then as we work with them and hear from staff and volunteers, we'll add. But it has a really nice way of positively stating things that someone needs to know about an animal. Yes. And it's very readable, it's not it's a nice thing. I can just send you guys a link.
So I have a comment, so,
Yeah.
just as an end user, so 15 years ago when I came to pick up my dog and he was on the end of a pole, and I was basically told that he might like kill me in the car on the way home. You've come a long way, it's fantastic.
Adoption?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Well, he didn't, so I guess that's
He was the best dog in the entire world.
And then the last thing that I'll talk about today is our new transport program. And that is something we receive generous funding from the ASPCA. Transport is always challenging in that we'll have an animal that we place with a partner, and then the process of getting that animal to its end destination can take a long time, too much time. But sometimes they are going hours away, and it is very much a coordinated effort of finding out like when the transport's going, when can the foster be there to receive the animal, when is the animal ready because they might need surgery or et cetera. So we internally have been doing all the New York City transports for several years. Our field team does all those transports. And the Mayor's Alliance has been doing all the other transports. And that has become a bit much for just these two entities to do all of this. So with the funding from the ASPCA, we now will have 2 new transport vehicles, and we will have a supervisor who's coordinating the program and 3 transport drivers. And we will be doing transports of dogs and cats throughout New York State and cats to New Jersey. We had our first trip this past Saturday, and we're really excited about this. We think that this will decrease the wait time between placement to transfer, and kind of alleviate the Alliance and let them focus more on those longer transports, and just get animals to where they need to be sooner. I can tell you that at one point, and one thing we are going to continue looking at now that we have this person who's overseeing this more carefully, is having volunteers continue to help. We reached out to Volunteers for Health at one point, and I tried to coordinate, I think like 6 animals going to 3 different locations. it took hours, excuse me.
Will there be any limitations, time or location on where our transport is going?
I almost made it. Just New York.
Just New York State, but no, but if it's, what's the farthest point in your state? 3 hours?
We're looking at, setting a meeting point.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so, I'm sorry, I don't know how long I can
Yeah,
talk.
I think
But we are
Thank
looking
you,
at setting a meeting point so that we won't have drivers or animals on the road for, a long amount of time, because that's not good for them. But anyways, that just started, and there'll be more. Our goal for this year is 2,700 animals transported through this program. Woo, thanks.
Great news. Feel better.
And then finally, if Ellen already brought it up, but every board meeting would like to do a call out, a call to action. Foster is just, this is the month, the next couple of months. If you could go on our website and find out about it, or talk to anybody you know who's thinking about it, even for a short amount of time. It's not a long time commitment unless you want it to be, but there are so many animals that could benefit just from going out there, and in particular, like Ellen said, large dogs. That's really the need, and I put it out there to the members of the public as well. It's just, that's this month's call to action.
Thank you. Lots of really impressive changes, improvements, great news, queens, all these things. So really, really exciting. Thank you, Lisa, and to your whole team. You guys are doing a lot of great work and working really hard. We now are going to hear from Christine Kim, who's going to update us on the projects that Risa mentioned earlier, the capital improvement projects that are being overseen by the Department of Health. And Christine is the Senior Community Liaison for Animal Welfare at the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs. She's a macro social worker with a specialized interest in building programs that address overlapping human and animal welfare issues. It's her first time at our meetings, that's why I'm giving you a little more background. Christine also has a background in homeless services, immigrant services, substance use and mental health services, and professional development training. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm also just slightly under the weather, so I apologize in advance for probably coughing a lot and sneezing. If there is there a microphone that I might be able to use? So I prevent that if possible. There we go. Hi again. Excuse me. So good afternoon. It's really a pleasure to be here. As Patrick mentioned, my name is Christine Kim. I'm the Senior Community Liaison for Animal Welfare at the Mayor's Office. It's really been wonderful to be here to hear about all of the exciting developments from the board and Lisa and Ellen, and it just cements, oh, thank you so much. It cements for me what an exciting time this is for ACC, and also an exciting time for animal welfare in general in New York City, because I really feel like we can't talk about animal welfare in New York City without talking about ACC. They're really sort of synonymous in that way. So I'm here today to speak about just one sliver of the exciting developments, which is the capital projects. Okay, so to give you a brief overview, Mayor de Blasio has dedicated an unprecedented amount of financial support for ACC, $98.7 million of which is being put towards the development and renovations of the city's animal shelters. So under the mayor's direction, we're well on our way to meeting the administration's goal of having one full-service shelter in each of our 5 boroughs by 2024. So in Staten Island and in Brooklyn, the existing shelters are getting total renovations. In Manhattan, we're adding the brand new adoption center, and then in the Bronx and Queens, there will be brand new state-of-the-art constructions from the ground up. So for the Bronx Animal Shelter, we just recently tied up the ULIT process in November of 2018. It was a huge victory, and so I just want to congratulate ACC, and I also want to congratulate the advocates who are here who were supported in that process on a very long and hard-won battle. There were many challenges that came up, but what we ended up with in the long run was actually an even stronger version of the Bronx Shelter. So in hearing feedback from the community and also the local council member, we did end up adjusting our plans to ensure that the Bronx Shelter was really rooted in its geographic location, and that it also is understood as a true community-based organization that responds to community-specific needs. So these cutting-edge community programs and services are going to be delivered in a brand new 50,000 square foot facility with a projected budget of $66 million for development and construction. This facility is going to have the capacity to house 70 dogs, approximately 70 dogs, 140 cats, 30 rabbits, and 20 animals of other species. This in and of itself is really huge because we currently have no facility in the Bronx, right, besides the receiving center. So we're basically going from 0 to 260 animals, and that's 260 animals which on any given day, once the shelter is open, are being diverted from and reducing the burden on other ACC facilities. So on top of the animal sheltering, the state-of-the-art facility is also going to house the ACC headquarters, so that shelter leadership can be housed right there on the shelter grounds. There's also going to be space for a veterinary clinic, which will offer spay, neuter, and wellness services to the Bronx community in a stationary brick and mortar location, which is huge. I'm really excited about this because we know that the Bronx is a service desert, and we also know that we can prevent surrenders by offering affordable, accessible veterinary care to people. So ACC's current Bronx Admission Center also houses their heavily utilized pet food pantry. I believe in a document that I read that there was about 50,000 pounds of pet food distributed. There was a lot of pet food distributed in the admission center, and with the full service shelter opening, this service will be able to be continued in a much more comfortable space. And that's hugely important, very critical service that's being delivered to the Bronx community, which is one of the most food insecure neighborhood places in New York City. And with recent research, it's known that there is a connection between human food insecurity and pet food insecurity. So when people have human food insecurity, they're often feeding their animals with human food that they get from a pet food pantry, a human food pantry when pet food is not readily available. And that's just not a decision that anyone should have to make. There should be pet food and human food readily available to the people who need it the most. And so I am very excited that ACC is going to continue this really critical service in the Bronx. Okay, so on top of all this, the Bronx Shelter is also going to have a community room, which will help host a number of new and expanded community programs, and the Bronx Shelter facility is also going to be the home of the new Wild Bird Fund rehabilitation facility. Okay, so some of this new community programming came out of the discussion with the community and the local council member. To make sure that the shelter is, again, a true community-based organization, we looked at the characteristics of the community. The things that make Co-op City in particular special, because they were among the loudest advocates. And we made them the prominent pieces of our plan, and we're in discussion with ACC about how to utilize that community space to showcase these special pieces of plan. So, for example, some of the loudest criticism from the Co-op City area was, we really want more services for our youth and seniors, and if that's the case, then you got it. We will make sure that the shelter is delivering services for youth and seniors for the community. So to begin, we're going to make sure that the shelter is a resource to the community seniors, and that's a very important piece of the discussion. because Co-op City is actually the country's largest naturally occurring retirement community. Animal-assisted therapy has a growing evidence base for reducing loneliness in the elderly, reducing pain and emotional distress for people with chronic pain, reducing anxiety, all of these things. So in collaboration with existing senior services that are already in the area, we can bring animal-assisted therapy to the residents of the Co-op City seniors and enhance the human-animal bond without necessarily promoting pet ownership. So this is something that's slightly outside of the scope of ACC, but this is where outside partnerships become particularly crucial. So there are a number of groups that already provide this kind of service, so that ACC doesn't have to reinvent the wheel, but ACC's role will be to act as the hub. And with this kind of program and this vision, we can reimagine how a shelter, an animal shelter, supports and engages its community. Co-op City is also a community that really cares about the outcomes for its youth. So a number of the additional concessions that we made by the city have to do with after-school programming, fixing playgrounds, improving school facilities, all of these things that have to do with youth services. So on top of that, we really want to make sure that the animal shelter also plays its part in being a resource for the youth of the neighborhood. Co-op City has a really beautiful educational complex that's just around the corner from 2050 Bartow Avenue, which is the site for the Bronx shelter. It's called the Truman High School campus, and it's the site to a really special high school called Bronx Health Sciences High School. It's got a diverse student body, mostly Black and Latino students. And the mission of the school is to really increase the number of young people going into the health sciences as a career. So to achieve this, the school really places a premium on service learning, so students are required to complete 420 hours of community service in order to graduate. Right now their system is that their students choose a placement out of a handbook with pre-approved sites where they can go. And students who are interested in animal services, they usually end up at the Bronx Zoo. So now with the full service animal shelter just around the corner, they have an opportunity to really go there, get exposure to shelter medicine. And I've already talked to the Principal Rivas. She is just like beyond excited. She's a total animal person, really excited that the animal shelter is going to be there and that there's an opportunity for an academic partnership. Let me skip over some of this stuff. Okay, so having the shelter just across the street from all of these schools is also going to provide a really incredible opportunity to help New York City fulfill, our schools in New York City fulfill the humane education mandate. So schools will be welcome to the shelter for field trips. ACC and other groups that they already currently partner with, like the Fair Shake for Youth, can push in to schools with additional curriculum. And one of those groups that will be a part of that conversation is Wild Bird Fund. So in our conversations with Councilmember Keene, he really opened up a really interesting and incredible opportunity to reimagine what an animal shelter specifically in the Bronx can be. Okay, so this was the original conceptual design for the Bronx Animal Shelter, and with Wild Bird Fund as an integral part of the plan. This is now the latest Bronx shelter preview, with 2,800 additional square feet dedicated to the rescue and rehabilitation of New York City's wild birds. I want to be clear that this is 2,800 additional square feet, not 2,800 square feet being taken away from ACC.
So what does the new building look like?
So this is a concept rendering. This was the original, and then with Wild Bird Fund, you can see that there's like a first floor wing that's been added on to the side.
So it's the same as before plus the wing?
Yes.
Okay.
Was that parking before? What was that?
Yes, I believe it was. Yeah. Okay, so as you can see from this concept rendering, Wild Bird Fund has a first floor or a ground floor wing. We imagine it to be mostly glass so that the community can be engaged right off the street. and really take a look at what it means to rehabilitate wildlife, to engage safely and coexist with wildlife. Wild Bird Fund will also be participating in the community programming, offering volunteer and educational opportunities to the community members. So to bring this back to the shelter being a co-op specific community-based organization, we're really taking geography into account here. Sorry, I skipped ahead. 2050 Bartow Avenue is less than a mile away from the Pelham Bay Park. And so volunteers not only get to participate in rehabilitating wild birds, but they also get to participate in releasing wild birds in what Rita, who's the founder and executive director of Wild Bird, calls Nature's Most Perfect Classroom. So here are some additional images to give you a preview of what the Bronx Animal Shelter may be like. So here we have a couple of images of the adoptions portion of the shelter. Here's where adoption interviews will take place. Okay. So for next steps for getting the Bronx shelter underway, they include issuing an RFP for design services and selecting a design firm. We project that this will be completed by the fall of this year. We then need to finalize the designs, and this will take a projected 24 months. After that, we will issue the RFP for build services and select a firm. This is a standard DDC timeline for projects, no matter how big or how small the projects are. The groundbreaking is expected to take place in summer 2022, and then the move-in is projected to meet our goal of being in by 2024. Okay, so on to the next shelter. Brooklyn's shelter is receiving a total renovation to the existing smaller shelter. We are replacing it with a 2-story shelter, nearly doubling its current square footage and then significantly improving its HVAC system. So we are actually going to be more than doubling the number of HVAC zones. The project has an estimated budget of $27.3 million, and the next steps for completion are to complete design. It's projected to be finished up by the winter of next year. From there, we will issue an RFP for build services and select a firm. This will take the projected 9 months, which again is a standard part of the DDC bidding process. Construction is then projected to start in winter 2021, and we're anticipated to move in for fall 2023. Okay. And here's just a quick rendering of the Brooklyn Animal Shelter, just under the existing Brooklyn ACC shelter. Okay, so in Staten Island, we also have a total renovation project. So we're currently working on the utility connections for electricity and gas, and we expect to move in just around the corner from now by this spring. So there will still be some construction going on even after move-in. The main adoption entrance and parking lot will be completed in winter 2020. Is there a question? Okay, so here are a few photos of construction in progress. We have the interior, dog kennels, and then the exterior skin. And then another exterior view.
Is that glass or?
It's a solid material, but it's translucent, so there is natural light inside the building. All of that, less than light.
Okay, so on to Manhattan. So we're currently in the design process for what will be the first ever standalone adoption center for ACC. Separating adoptions from the other services will have an impact on the feel of the environment. It will move people away from the impression of like the old pound model, and will instead create a happy, positive, and inviting environment, creating a destination for people to come and visit with animals, view animals, and hopefully adopt, a new member of their family. So this new facility is going to be 2,500 square feet. We're projecting that the design process will be completed by this summer, after which we will issue an RFP for build services and then select a firm. So this takes that standard issue 9 months, and then we project that the construction will be completed by spring 2022. And then lastly, very quickly,
So for Manhattan, there's no change for the animals, it's just the adoption center that's changing.
the adoption center is the only new construction being added for the, yes.
Current shelter has adoption in it,
Yeah.
so we'll be creating more space for all the services that are being provided, but
Yeah, just wanted
not
to-
new
Yeah.
facilities.
Yeah.
And no other renovation.
I don't believe so, but I will double check for you.
Not part of these projects. Right?
Okay, so with the Queens shelter, lastly, a few brief details about Queens. We already heard some about it from Lisa, but the executed 34-year contract, which was approved by the comptroller this month, includes the cost of purchasing the property and construction costs for the Queens full-service shelter. We're doing this to expedite the process and have a fully operational full-service shelter in a reasonable amount of time. Also, there were really no suitable city-owned sites, so ACC is being funded by the city to acquire this property and build the state-of-the-art shelter on a non-. And ACC is currently pursuing a location to meet their needs. That's it. Thank you very much. I know that was sort of a flash update, so I will be available afterwards. Thanks.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, we now are moving to the public comments section of our agenda. And again, just to remind everybody, this is a board meeting of ACC, and we hold those meetings in public, and we welcome and invite public comments. We don't need to do that, but we feel it's very important. Your responsibility is to be civil and respectful, and if anyone doesn't adhere to those guidelines, the public comment session will end immediately. So we've had really great constructive sessions the last few board meetings, so I'm sure this will be the same. First one is Amy Marino. Hi, Amy.
Hi, I'm gonna stay right here. I just have a quick question. Recently, within like the past couple of weeks, I saw a couple of animals that were cruelty cases. Torin was a brindle dog abandoned in a car twice in January. The other was RTO, returned to owner, and I'm just trying to figure out why. Abandoned in a cold car, brought in, let me see my notes. The dog's ID is 52352. Cruelty charges should have been filed, leaving a dog in an abandoned car. We shouldn't do it at all, but especially when it's cold in January. That was the second time running by NYPD, and Torin was wobbling and falling over. This is a big dog who was coming in and was wobbling, kind of. They said that that she was small. My urge is to summon their dog back in this instance, because was any cruelty filed? Like, was there a cruelty charge filed? I mean, it seems like the owner just got a slap on the hand for something like that. If you keep giving the dog back, that's not really showing any care. And there's another one. Willow was a cat, a Torby, 51730, dumped due to an alleged bite. Not sure exactly what happened. She came in bandaged. There was nothing in the cruelty notes, yet there was trauma. She had a broken paw. A TV was thrown at her. Why was there no cruelty charges filed against her people also? I mean, I would just like to know that, because there's something a little wrong with that. Shouldn't ACC should be filing charges against that instead of letting the same people getting their cat back? I mean, Torin went back to the owner and said that, you try to keep animals with the owners, but in that sense, I don't think you should try to keep an animal with their owner if they're just gonna keep abandoning their pet in a car, how many more times does that really have to happen? That's just. I mean, you have all the, you know. Yeah, that's it, I don't know.
So I'm not familiar specifically with those cases and information that you provided about that it was cruelty or how it happened. I really have to get familiar and we'll look those up. But what you should know is that ACC doesn't have the authority to pursue cruelty to its end, that's NYPD. And when we see something in an animal that looks suspicious, we immediately alert the authorities and work with them. But the ultimate disposition of whether it's cruelty or not is not our judgment to make. And that's really an NYPD thing. But I will look into those two cases and we can get back to you on details.
Can you say the A numbers of the cases again? Sorry.
Okay, Willow is 51730, a cat, and Torin was 52352, brindle, big dog.
Thank you, Amy.
Oh, you remember it by name?
Caitlin Dimmel. Hi.
Hey, everyone. My name is Kate Himmel. I'm a 5-year level 2 dog volunteer at the Manhattan Care Center. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the incredibly difficult job that the ACC has. It's an endless fight, and I'm grateful for your ongoing work. With that said, I'm here today to discuss areas of potential improvement, specifically when animals leave the ACC's care. While I know your live release rate is viewed as an important metric, depending on who the animals are placed with, huge risks can remain. The most glaring recent example, of course, is the Fairfield 5. For those of you not familiar, on November 14th, the Fairfield, Connecticut Police Department responded to a report of animal cruelty at the home of Heidi Looters, acting president of Foley Breed Rescue. Officers found several canine carcasses in crates within the residence. These dogs were starved and died slow and agonizing deaths. Unfortunately, 3 of these dogs were confirmed to be ACC dogs by Chris Antonelli, Vice President of Foley Breed Rescue. A situation like this raises so many what-ifs about how this could have been avoided. In this case specifically, a major red flag was raised when Heidi was arrested in 2015 and charged with 3rd-degree assault and 2nd-degree reckless endangerment after she ordered her personal dog to attack a friend who owed her money. In no circumstances should she have been an active New Hope partner in light of those charges. That all said, it is my understanding that there have been increased efforts recently to ensure more accountability on the part of New Hope rescue partners, and I think that's incredibly important. With all that said, a less extreme but more pervasive issue that I want to bring to light is the epidemic of boarding and warehousing. This occurs when rescues pull without a foster or adopter in place and hold dogs in boarding indefinitely. I've personally visited ACC dogs in long-term boarding, and the impact can be extreme. Long-term isolation and boarding can lead to dangerous reactivity and behavioral issues, as well as physical and psychological deterioration. In cases like this, it can be argued that a high release rate shouldn't be the only metric for success. Moving forward, my hope is that there will be continued and increased attention on the practices of New Hope rescue partners. In light of the Fairfield 5, I propose mandatory criminal background checks on all rescue residents. In regards to the boarding epidemic and other misconduct by rescue partners, I feel randomized monthly pull assessments could go a long way. As the leading animal welfare organization in the U.S., I'm confident you'll agree this is a topic that warrants further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you for your volunteer work as well. Adiva Goldstein. No? Joan Sample?
Yes, I'm so glad you called me
Hi,
because I
Joan.
do have to go.
Okay.
I'm so glad I came. It's my first time and it was very constructive for me. And I realize that you guys have a huge job, seen a lot of improvement. I know that is something that is needed. How can I say, you don't turn them away. I can't think of the term right now, but I guess I'm a little nervous. I remember when wild dogs used to run the street and people's lives were in jeopardy and theirs as well. So I don't see that anymore. So I believe it's because of your organization. I have 4 rescues. I've adopted from you guys, and I had 5, but we lost one recently to old age. And my main concern right now is the high incidence of respiratory illnesses. That seems to plague the dogs and the cats. And then immediately they get medication, and then they are put on the at-risk list. As you have stated, that's the kind of dog with behavioral and medical problems. So I'm not sure why it's widespread, but I think that maybe some best practices might reduce that, thus further saving more animals. I've had a lot of health problems, and I've been trying to get the volunteer, but that's okay, because that will resolve itself, and even if it doesn't, I will be physically able to do something, because I have to, because I'm constantly drawn to wanting to help. And that's about all I have to say. I love you guys, I don't need to know you to love you, and bless. I'm out.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Deborah Thomas?
Good afternoon. I am a longtime volunteer at the ACC, and first of all, I also would like to commend the ACC staff, the executive staff, the board, the volunteers, everyone for all the improvements that have been made. I started in 2004, and it's like night and day from back then. I won't even go into it, but I think you all know what I'm talking about. I'm so thrilled about all the improvements that have been made. I also am very thrilled that this Bronx shelter is going to become a reality. I know it was a long, hard fight, and I'm just so glad it's happening, and I'm glad that the Queens shelter is going to be happening too. This is just, these are dreams come true. As the new rules with the at-risk list and just finding ways for the animals to go to rescue and all. Like I say, we prayed for this for years, we worked for it for years, and I just can't tell you how happy we are. A couple of things that I would like to say, you know, respectfully, let's keep it coming, is advertising, because as somebody brought up earlier, I think a lot of people still do think we are the ASPCA. I was talking to someone who told me that she had a large bunch of linens that she wanted to donate, and she said, oh, and I always donate them to the ASPCA. And I said, well, that's wonderful, but would you consider donating them to the ACC? I said, because we have less money than they do. And she said, oh, what is that? Or where is that? Or whatever. So I said, well, I volunteer there, and we actually did facilitate getting the linens to the ACC. So, but I mean, I think there's just so many people out there who do still think we're the ASPCA. So I know advertising has really gone, you know, it's been, there's been a lot more of it, but I would say just keep it coming, because I think, you know, it's very helpful. The other thing, I think in this day and age, it's really hard to believe, but I know it's true because I work as a volunteer adoption facilitator. A lot of people do surrender their animals because of they're moving and they can't take the animal to the new apartment building. They don't allow animals, whatever. I would like to see, I would like to encourage everyone to please use whatever influence you have to get the laws changed, especially at Co-op City, since we're going to have a shelter right there. Everyone in the city should be allowed to have a pet if they want it. And we know the reasons they are pets are especially helpful to senior citizens, to people with disabilities, but also just to regular citizens who want a companion or to have an animal to love and love them. So I would really hope that in hopefully the near future, there'll be no one having to surrender an animal because they're not allowed to have it in their apartment. So please keep up the good work, and thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And finally, Judith Lorgarden.
I have a friend that died, and his dog went to ACC just a few weeks ago. And the family went up there. I was trying to reach, I called the 19th precinct, They didn't know anything, I don't know, even though they were the ones that took the dog. The family went up to ACC a day or so later, and the dog actually went to the original rescue where my friend rescued him from. But ACC would not. Now this family has just lost a family member. They're already suffering. And ACC would not give them the name of the rescue that had the dog. This dog had been with the family for 7 years. That was not right. That's just not ethical. That's not doing the right thing. Okay. Everyone knows about ACC. Everyone knows about the Humane Society. But sadly, very, very few know about ACC. ASPCA, Humane Society, oh yes, that's where they think when they want to adopt a dog. No one knows about ACC. When ACC redid their website just a few years ago, when they were very like, oh, we have a new website, it's in English only. In the melting pot of the world, it is in English only. Anything that's city government run, when you get their notices, it's in every language. Vets. If a vet is not on the premises, they do not practice humane euthanasia. There should be a vet in every care center. It's an animal care center. They need a vet in every care center. They've got a lot of empty cages in Brooklyn. They killed this dog, Mac. Mac lived with a pet, moving, I believe it was moving, and they couldn't have the pet. Lived with a family, 2 children. Mac is dead. Sweet as sugar, good as gold. That's a problem, especially when there are empty cages. If you look at the CAPA bill, if the CAPA bill were passed in New York, city or state, that would be against the law. That would be illegal to kill with empty cages. If an animal is going to be spayed, neutered, or spayed or neutered, they should not be put on an at-risk list after that. There were at least 6 animals that were killed the following day. I have a whole spreadsheet. That's really bad. That's actually, I don't know anyone with a grain of compassion that would put an animal, a defenseless animal, through a surgery and kill it, no less sometimes the following day. But I have a list that it's about between 1 and 6 days. It's bad. It's wrong. We have a city of 9 million people, and they had adopted 2,622 animals. Something's wrong there. I'm a business person, creative business. Something's wrong there. Marketing is critical. And nobody knows about ACC. I'm on the Upper East Side. Nobody knows about ACC. It blows my mind. Yet they know, as I said, about ASPCA, the Humane Society, but not ACC. That's a problem. Let's see, New Hope Rescues. We have 300 New Hope Rescues. Well, 55 of them have stars on them, which mean they're pulling. But if you go to try and find one who's going to pull, there's really a handful. There's about 13 to 16 that are pulling. If there are 300 New Hope rescues, it should be mandatory that these rescues have to pull a minimum of X amount of animals out of there. Otherwise, why are they a New Hope rescue?
Judith, thanks very much. We do have a 2-minute time limit.
Oh,
and
I
we've been
didn't
keeping-
realize.
It's well
Because
beyond
I have
that.
so much more to say.
I'm sure you do. You had some really interesting ideas and comments, and also some fair criticisms that we'll have to look into, so thank you.
I can sit and
I'm
talk
sure-
with you further when we're
sure
not
you
sitting
can.
here and I'm on a 2-minute time limit.
Okay. Thanks very much. And with that, we are completing our meeting. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Risa, and to your staff. Thank you to everyone on the board. We heard a lot of really great things today, progressive ideas and programs and projects that are in today and going to make a huge difference here in New York City. So we are leading the way for animal welfare. So thank you all very much for coming.